If this thing's working, someone somewhere will hear me. It hums when I speak, but it's like it's remembering the sound of my voice as I told it to, or as I was told it would, or... God, my mind is completely all over the place, I'm sorry. I was told to keep talking, so here I am, talking, remembering. I don't really remember before. Not my name, not the place I came from, nothing. It's like my life begins at the moment I opened my eyes and saw the water dragging itself away from me. Foam clinging to my arms, my hair heavy with salt, my body ached like it had torn apart and sewn back together even wrong. Every breath felt like I was learning how to breathe again. But I remember afterwards. Every moment since then is carved into me as it refuses to fade. The sting of the sand, the sound of the tide when pulling at my ankles, the light, God, the light. It was night when I woke. I know that because I saw the moon. But it didn't feel like night. The world was too bright. Every surface was bleeding color. Even the shadows were glowing, trembling with impossible hues that pulsed like veins under my skin. The air shimmered, heavy and soft, filled with a metallic scent that wasn't quite blood but wasn't quite clean either. And the forests, they weren't trees. Not like any I've known, or I think I should know. Thousands of slender stalks rose from the earth, each one the color of deep, living red, darker near the roots and glowing faintly towards their tips. Their skin was smooth, almost glassy, catching the moonlight and reflecting it in long shimmering lines. They bent when the wind moved through them, but didn't sway, they more like breathed. When I tried to walk among them, the ground gave beneath my, damp cloth. My reflection followed me in every crimson stem, stretched and distorted as if the world itself was trying to remember what I looked like. And overhead was the moon. It wasn't silver. No, it was pale and distant. It burned too white, too bright to look at, flooding everything in light that could have been belonged to the sun. The shadow it casts was sharp, black, and alive. It made my skin shine like frost, and every color screamed against it. Reds to reds, blue like wounds. I think this was the first time I realized how wrong this place was, or maybe how wrong I was in it. When I first rose, if you can call it that, I didn't know where I was. The ground felt like it wanted to pull me down, as though the sand itself remembered something I didn't. My hands trembled when I pushed myself up. The grains were clinging to my palms, glittering like crushed glass under the moonlight. The sea was behind me. I could feel it in my bones, the pulse of the rhythm and still echoing in me chest. But before me, it wasn't sea anymore. It was something else. It was pools, or ponds perhaps, scattered across the land like mirrors spilled from the heavens. Their water shimmered blue, but not like any blue I knew. It pulsed softly, veins of light running through it, bright as lightning yet calm, serene, and oddly alluring. Every step I took toward them made the ground ripple, the soil parting and mending like some kind of vast, breathing thing beneath me. And the collars... As I said before, the collars, there was no rest from them. The air itself shimmered with hues I couldn't name, alive and shifting like olive over frame. The clouds themselves that stuck out in front of the moon had their own shapes. They weren't naturally made. They had symmetry and curves. They looked more like a painting more than actual clouds. And the plants beneath my feet, they were like small tendrils. They were translucent and vibrant, curling and straightened as I walked, as if the earth was curious about me. They glowed faintly, just like everything else, each movement leaving behind a ghost of light before fading into the next. I looked down and saw my own clothes clinging to me, heavy and drenched. It was black mostly. A dark jacket with brass buttons, a loose collar, and striped sleeves, the pattern of a sailor's uniform. I don't know how I knew that word, but it came to me without hesitation, as if it belonged to a life I could almost touch. Someone who had belonged to the sea, not to the land. And yet here I was, inland, surrounded by collars so thick it felt alive, breathing down my neck. I shouldn't have been here. None of this should have been real. Even the smallest rocks glittered with impossible detail, every crack and groove humming with color. It was overwhelming. My eyes couldn't rest. They drank in everything until my head spun, and the world was too much, too vivid, too sharp. I remember whispering, "This is not how the world looks." But I had no memory of what the world was supposed to look like. Still, I knew this wasn't it. And that's when it showed up. I heard it before I saw it. It sounded like whispering ink, soft and deliberate, curling through the air. Not quite a voice, not quite a breath. It came from somewhere ahead, threading through crimson stalks like a living thing. The pawns nearby dimmed as if holding their light close, and for a moment everything around me waited. And that's when I saw them. Two eyes, pale, unblinking and wrong. They glowed faintly, not with warmth, but with the same white brilliance the moon carried, a cold fire that made the air feel thinner. When they turned towards me, I felt like something inside me was recoiling, like every piece of me that still remembered what was human wanted to run. I stumbled backwards, my heels sinking into the soft soil. My hand found one of the crimson stalks, and its glassy surface was slick and warm. I snapped it 3. My inside bleeding with a faint red mist that clung to my fingers. I held it before me like a spear, shaky, ready to face whatever the thing was. And then it stepped out. At first, I thought it was cloaked, but the longer I looked, the more the illusion fell apart. Its cloak wasn't fabric. It was made of something alive, and it was attached like it was part of the thing I was looking at. It had thin fronds and layered leaves. They were slick and dark, shifting gently like gills breathing in air. They moved even when the wind didn't, brushing against one another in a slow rhythm. Beneath it, the creature's skin shone like porcelain, smooth and reflective, catching every color around us, twisting them across its surface. Its face was sharp, and humanly so, like something carved rather than born. Patterns were etched into that dark surface, shapes that pulsed faintly when it moved, symbols that meant nothing but felt heavy and ancient. It had a nose and ears and the head and feet of a rabbit, like it was trying to mimic one, yet it stood upright, emotionless in its face. And its hands, if that's what they were, didn't touch its arms. They flushed just a breath away, disconnected yet obedient, moving in perfect sync. When it raised one, the limb followed as if it was bound by invisible strings. I could see the air distort faintly around whatever joints it was supposed to have, the heat haze as if the creature existed just slightly apart from the world it stood in. See, we humans, we have arms. It shouldn't take a genius to say that, but this thing didn't. But it had legs. I don't understand. It carried something long and thin, like a brush of bone and gold. From the tip, it trailed a line of burning red light, bending and twisting through the air as if it were some painted thing in reality itself. Every stroke it made hummed, and where the light passed, the world seemed to listen. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't something born of flesh. No god I could remember, even if I could remember any, would have crafted such a thing. It was art and horror blended, too perfect to be natural and too unnatural to be divine. Its eyes stayed on me, not cruel, just aware, like it was studying me, the same way I was looking at it, but mine was more fear, weighing me against something unseen. And in that gaze I felt small, like a smudge of ink waiting to be wiped away. I remember whispering, barely a sound, what was it? It tilted its head. The red line in its hand glowed brighter, and the world around us shuddered like a canvas under too much paint. It began to move towards me. It was slow at first, each step measured and deliberate. The glow of its eyes barely flickered, but something in the air changed with every pace it took. It casted light like the moon, those eyes. The colors dimmed around it, as though the world was afraid to outshine it. I could feel the weight of its attention pressing against my chest, tightening until my lungs burned. I shouted at it, something worthless or wordless or desperate. It swung the crimson stalk. The air hissed as the stalk cut through it, a sharp whistle that startled even me. Then its paw reached out. It stretched from its body like a smoke-taken form, thin and white, perfect and wrong. It was just a simple round shape. It shouldn't have been able to reach that far. It didn't move like a limb, it extended, gliding towards me as though the distance between us had never existed. I felt the temperature drop as it neared, like something in the shadow of something vast and hollow. Instinct took over and I struck that son of a bitch with a swing I could have swore I felt before. The sound that followed wasn't flesh meeting flesh. I guess flesh did seem like it had fauna on it. It rang a clear, brittle note, like a bell struck underwater, like the shatter of porcelain that refused to break. The vibration traveled up the stalk into my arm, numbing me for just a moment. But in my shock, the creature flinched. It staggered back, clutching its paw, if you could call it that, and for a heartbeat it looked startled. It shook the limb gently, almost human in its motion. The sound that came from it wasn't a cry or a hiss, but a low resonance that buzzed behind my eyes, making my vision blur. And then it spoke. Not with a mouth, not even aloud. Its voice appeared inside me, a vibration in my skull, words I could feel but not understand. Each one was a shape pressed against my mind, sharp and incomprehensible, melting before I could grasp them. That's what it sounded like, anyway. Or what I could force into sound. Gibberish that still meant something, though I couldn't tell what. Every syllable twisted the air around me. I dropped the stalk, my knees nearly buckled. The creature tilted its head, the motion slow and graceful, its hollow paws still hovering just out of reach, and for a moment I thought it was going to strike me back. But it didn't. It only stared. And then the voice again came forward, softer, like a whisper through the fog. I couldn't take it. The sound made my skin crawl, made something in me ache like a half-remembered wound. I turned and I ran, through the glowing glass and through the humming air, until the world itself seemed to fold away behind me. I ran. I didn't look back, not even once. Not even when the light bent and cracked behind me, and when I heard the brush's red trail fizz and hum through the air. I just ran, through the glades of those crimson stalks, their glass skin slicing faint lines across my arms as I tore through them. The air was thick, almost syrupy, every breath scraping down my throat like sand. My heart didn't know what rhythm to keep. It hammered, then stopped, then hammered again, as though it was trying to remember how to live. When I couldn't go farther, I threw myself behind a large rock. It was smooth and dark, pulsing faintly beneath my palms. I pressed myself into the side and tried to make myself small, biting my lips so hard I tasted copper. The sound of breathing was too loud, every inhale a scream waiting to happen. When I looked up and... God, why did I look up? I saw them. At first I thought they were fruit, strange pale pods hanging from the stalks, swinging lazily in the wind. But then I saw the cords, the thin ropes, twisted and frayed, cutting into what they held. Bodies. Hundreds of them. Small, slight forms dangling from the stalks, each one swaying as if it was still alive. The ropes, they creaked in unison, a slow rhythmic groan that filled the silence with something unbearable, the sound of weight remembering itself. They weren't human, not quite. Their scales and shapes were too close, but too narrow, too delicate, with limbs that tapered like clay before it hardens. Their heads lolled to one side, faces turned toward the earth, and their faces, they were smiling. Not in peace, not in joy, but something worse. A smile stretched too wide, too still, like it had been carved there and left to dry. Their eyes were open, gleaming faintly in the moonlight, tiny reflections of the same pale light that drowned the world. I couldn't tell if they were real, if they had ever been alive, or if something or someone had made them. They looked happy. Happy to have been hung. The stalks around them hummed softly, the ropes twitching in time with the wind, each movement making the forest whisper like 1,000 sighs. I covered my mouth, my teeth digging into the skin of my hand to keep myself from screaming. It was then I realized some of them were still moving. Not with the wind, not like the others. They were twitching, just a little, watching me, with that same ethereal glow coming through their eyes, like the thing I saw just before. White. Celestial. And I don't know if the sound I heard next was the wind or the ropes, or the laughter of something that made them smile. Just as I thought I was safe, the rock began to move. At first I thought it was the trembling of my hands or the pulsing of the soil beneath me, but then I felt it. Deep, slow, and alive. The surface beneath my palm shifted, the texture changing from cool and smooth to something warm and damp, as if the stone itself had begun to live. I stumbled backwards, my heel digging into the dirt. The rock, whatever it was, cracked. Thin, fat fractures that, glowing faintly from within, and had golden veins pulsing like molten light beneath its surface. And then, with a grinding sound that ripped through the earth, it rose. It wasn't stone. The thing unfolded from the ground with an impossible slowness. The plates of its body were scraping against each other in grinding metallic groans. The air filled with the scent of iron and dust, and when it straightened, if something too grotesque could said to be straightened, I saw its form. A shell, massive and blood red, wet with a sheen that caught every fragment of moonlight. Segmented armor curled along its back like a crustacean carved from molten ore. Each plate flexing and clinking in mechanical rhythm. And between those plates, thick cords of sinew, or something like it, glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the creature's breath. And then the head rose. Its eyes were black and wide and glistening, snapped open with narrow pupils slicing through light. There was intelligence to them, but no kindness, not reason, just hunger and fury, something older than sense. Above them, from the creature's skull, jutted a crown of jagged golden horns, twisted like the roots of a dead tree, polished to a mirror's shine. They shimmered as though wet, though I realized too late if it was water or some kind of secretion, thick, oily, and dripping down the joints like sap. Its mouth, if that's what the slit between the eyes was, opened, splitting far too wide, and the sound that came out was not of this world. It screamed. Not a roar, not a cry, a metallic shriek, a chorus of blades dragging against glass, the wail of something that had never been meant to draw breath. The air itself coiled, the light trembled, the ground beneath me rippled like water under the weight of the sound, and then above us, the things began to laugh. Not one of them, not a few of them, all of them, at once. Their laughter rose in grotesque harmony, hundreds of voices cracking and wheezing and shrieking with joy. The ropes jerked as their bodies twitched, their smiles stretching wider, impossibly wide as if the sound was feeding them. Their limbs and joints cracked and bent in impossible ways, trying to break themselves free. One of them had their face splitting open down the middle just so it could get a better look at me with its two rotten eyes. They swayed and danced on their cords, this laughter growing louder, shriller, ecstatic. Their eyes glowed faintly pale like the moon. When the one that had its head split open, the soul, whatever energy was inside of them that was behind the eyes, spilled out like tea, dripping down and fizzling onto the earth, staring down upon me with that same blissful emptiness. The creature's scream grew until I thought my skull would split. I could feel the vibration in my bones, like it was something calling for me, something beneath the earth to wake it. I covered my ears. I pressed my head to the ground, but I could still hear the sound inside my chest, thrumming through my heart, sinking with its beat until I could tell which pulse was mine anymore, and all around the laughing things swayed in their nooses like puppets at the end of a glorious unseen string. The creature's mouth began to open wider, far wider than anything alive should. At first I thought it was only a screen building in, but no, there was movement inside. Rows upon rows of blades, thin as needles and countless, layered like the gills of some metal leviathan. They trembled, glinting with the molten gold that bled from its horns, and I realized each one was sharp enough to catch the air and cut it. It was smiling. The monster was smiling at me as if it knew I would be the next one to decorate those hanging stalks. Just as I thought it was about to grab me, something grabbed me, but it wasn't the monster. No, it was... Ugh. A sharp pull at the back of my collar, strong enough to wrench me off my feet. The air was torn from my lungs and I was yanked backward, hard, into the dark. My vision blurred, the red stalks and the laughing bodies and the roaring beasts all smeared into streaks of color and sound. I twisted, trying to see who or what had me, and in the flickering light I saw it. The porcelain creature, the one with the pant cloak and the hollow eyes. It didn't look at me. Its face was fixed forward, its strange floating paws gripping and pulling, dragging me through the earth as fast as lightning. Its cloak whipped behind it, shredding tiny shards of glowing leaves that flickered out like dying embers. It had some knowledge of how to, not injure me. It didn't grab me by its skin like I thought it would. It did my skin, I'm sorry, this was all so quick. Even though I was nothing like it, it knew. The world around us blurred and the light fractured. It was bending sideways. The screams of the beast faded, swallowed by the black. All I could hear was the creature's heavy, rhythmic breath and the whisper of its voice still inside my mind, still speaking that impossible language that felt like it should mean something. The words grew louder, almost panic. The air grew colder, and the light behind us flickered out entirely.